Good morning, afternoon. The folks, just a few more minutes to hop in. Hey, Stacy. I'm assuming that's maybe where David is as well.
Hello, everybody.
Hey. Hello. I wanted to say Dr. Phil. I don't know why. Brought me back a Simpsons memory when you're like, hello, everybody.
I try to be kind. I try to be welcoming. I am not Dr. Phil.
I just had like Simpsons memories. I was like, oh. I know Stacy's on another call. She'll be joining shortly. It might be this group, so we'll keep it
Now, we are
entertaining.
recording this, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
being
So
recorded as we
whatever,
speak.
whatever I present will be on the YouTube for others to abuse.
Yes. Unfortunately. Hey, Yoma.
Oh no, that's not unfortunate. I would rather, say
Become a
something.
meme?
Somebody else wants to say, hey, you don't have to have the fear of missing out. I mean, you can't ask questions of the video, but you can at least
Yeah.
see what was said.
Yeah, I was taking from the perspective of becoming a future meme.
Yeah,
That's part of the risks.
as
We're
for
all about risks.
yes, that's one of the risks. I'm not. It's not a risk I'm terribly worried about, but okay.
Yeah, if you go viral that way. No. But yeah, so today's office hours is focused on securing AI, and we have the privilege of having David Wheeler, who just released the I'm gonna read it by name, the LFL, my dyslexia, LFEL 1012 course. on secure AI ML driven software development best practices for an AI world. Um, David,
That is right.
welcome.
Thank you.
Stacy and Idioma, welcome as well. And we'll just kick it off with a quick summarization of what's the course and why is it necessary in today's day and age?
Okay, so tell you what, let me do a quick screen share here,
With the visuals.
and we'll try to view. All right. So I thought I'd well, a few minutes, but hopefully provide a little bit about the course and also some context. I'm not going to try to redo the whole course. I mean, I could do that, but we have a course, so you don't need to redo the whole course. But I did want to give some broader context and some I guess some little tastes from it that will hopefully whet the appetite and convince people to join. So I'm going to talk about securing the AI future, OpenSSF work on AI and software development. Okay, so let's get going. All right, so first of all, this, like many other things, are the results of the OpenSSF AI/ML working group. I'm going to talk more broadly about the working group in general, because this is the working group that works on AI-related security things and the OpenSSF. Two major categories: security for AI and AI for security. By security for AI, we're talking about we're building AI systems. We like that to be secure, that process of building AI systems. So we have things like, and using AI systems, things like model signing. There's a new SIG, the Safe MCP SIG. MCP is already widely used to help LLM-based agents interfere with tools and data sets and so on. But we'd like that to be secure, and so we're working on guidance for that. There's also an MLSecOps white paper explaining how to develop, basically an ML ops with security in it. Other side is AI for security. I want to take AI and use it to build secure things. The focus I'm going to talk about today is the Secure AI/ML Driven Software Development course. That's LFEL 1012, just released very recently. That course builds on something else we did, the Security Focused Guide for AI Code Assistant Instructions. There's the link. And then there's also something called the Cyber Reasoning System SIG. This is efforts to secure critical open source software projects using AI, building on work we've done with the AI Cyber Challenge work linked there. We've been working last 2 years. So anyway, there's a link. Off we go. Okay, so first of all, I want to state something that may be painfully obvious to many, but I think is not obvious to others. But the inflection point has passed. AI is now the normal case, and the weird case is manually developing software without any AI assistance. You got Stack Overflow saying in a 2025 survey that already you have 51% of professional developers using AI tools daily, 84% using or planning. Now, that doesn't mean they highly trust them. Only about 3% say they trust it. And so we'll talk about why that is. What's wrong with the 3%, frankly? What have you not learned yet? Another study found that 59% used AI coding tools daily, and another 28% weekly. So we're talking 88%. And I think that was actually earlier this year. And Dev2, another one, 91% of web developers are using AI to generate code. In other words, we don't need to talk about software development and that uses AI. If we're not using AI, then we need a special word for that unusual case. Now, why is this happening? There's a simple word: productivity. That's it. Now, there's lots of people who studied this, and yes, there is some controversy, and it depends on how exactly you measure things. But I'm going to primarily point to Stanford's work, because a lot of folks use things like self-reporting productivity, and frankly, that's a terrible measure. So Stanford went out and looked what actual developers at very large scales and what was happening. And when they looked at 100,000 software developers in the real world, examining what they did, they found all sorts of interesting factors. First of all, AI can generate a lot of code. A lot of it also has to be reworked. And when you're considering productivity, it's not just how many lines of useless code were created, it's how much was actually useful, including efforts necessary to do the rework. And this basically reveals something that I'm sorry, I know some people have made some claims, but current AI does not replace humans. Maybe someday. It does not do that today. It is at best an assistant. It needs constant guidance. What's worse, AI tends to decrease productivity in niche languages, and that's because there's very little data available for training. Machine learning doesn't work well for languages where there's little training data. It has, for example, a lot of trouble with COBOL. That doesn't mean it can't have trouble. It can't handle COBOL. Other natural languages work fine on. The problem is the lack of training data. We, LF, are actually working in the Open Mainframe project trying to get COBOL code out available for training on, because without the training data, these tools are not so great. Greenfield, these things are amazing, okay, especially for low complexity. But I think in many ways this is misleading. If what you're measuring is, hey, I want to create a whole new program that's a couple lines of code and it never existed before, almost all the work is just copying from templates. It's trivial for an AI system to do, but that's also misleading. That's not the normal case. The normal case is I've got an existing program. It's been around a little while. I'm trying to improve it. And there we're talking 20% productivity improvement. That's amazing. That's extraordinary. This is on the level of things like high-level languages, structured programming, the introduction of open source software. This is not a, hey, I may be getting a 1% improvement. These are significant amounts of improvement. Now, if customers want to pay to avoid the use of AI and custom code written specifically for them, you can. You will pay a premium and will only apply to that custom code. But that's not going to be the normal case today. These kind of productivity numbers are frankly the end of the discussion for most folks. I get a significant productivity boost if I use it correctly. And now the question is how to use them correctly. All right, but it's important to understand that these technologies are not perfect. The modern systems are all based on LLMs and LLM-based systems, and they have weaknesses. They are gullible. They have limited context windows on their inputs. There's all sorts of issues that involve from their training sets. And what about their outputs? Sometimes they're great, but sometimes they have a lot of errors, they have hallucinations. And so this doesn't mean we can't use them, but we've got to use them productively in spite of their limitations. All tools have limitations. The key thing that we need to worry about is what's called, Wilson calls the lethal trifecta from a security point of view. This means when you have a case where the AI system is exposed to untrusted content, has access to your private data, and has the ability to externally communicate, bad things can follow. And so we want to prevent this, or where it has to occur, we want to take additional steps to reduce the risks. And there's two kinds of risks that we're particularly talking about today. One is, and particularly the course that we've just released, development environment risks. Basically failures in the development environment, things like it starts sending out secret data, and of course the results. The AI system can generate hideously insecure code. We need to deal with that. So we've got a course, LFEL 1012. I guess somewhere I got to move my little head around here. So LFEL 1012 is a free online 1-hour course called Secure AI ML Driven Software Development. And this is the outline on the left. We have an introduction and we have some context and key AI concepts for secure development. We are not assuming you already know everything about AI. Then we go over the security risks of using AI assistance. I've already given you a little sample of that. And then we get to the meat. Best practices for secure AI assistant. How do you use these things and stay secure? Writing more secure code with AI. The unfortunate reality is that these systems were trained on a lot of insecure code. What do you think it's going to do? Right. You can deal with that, but you have to work against its training sets, and that takes some effort. Finally, reviewing changes in a world with AI, and we end with a wrap up. So I'm going to go beg. If you are interested in software development, please go take this course. We think it's going to be helpful. This is the world we are living in today. You should be ready for the world that you live in today. And I thought I would kind of get off the stage with a couple points here, because in order, I've been using now the majority of software developers, I've been using these AI systems in software development. And frankly, right now, we're in the process of trying to share with each other tips as we learn them. We are all learning together. So these are some brief little tips I'm going to walk through here real quick. If you are relatively new to using AI in software development. First of all, you've got to give it clear, detailed instructions. They cannot read your mind. Start higher level, goal, ask for options, work incrementally with continuous review and interactions. Trying to get stuff all at once is a pretty typical way towards disaster. Provide relevant details. People often comment that the AI systems are pointless and terrible. Other people say, man, these systems are amazing. Both are true, but one way to really release their superpowers is to provide a lot of very focused, relevant details. If you're an expert, give it the details you know that are relevant in the case. But don't assert something if you're not sure about it, because they'll generally just take your word, even if it's false. Telling it it's a security expert doesn't work for security. That actually is a trick that works in some other areas, doesn't work here. Ask the AI system review its own proposal. That is not perfect, but it's surprisingly helpful. Easy to do, sometimes can help. AI is intellectually lazy. In general, the goal is to try to reduce the amount of compute time, not always to get the best possible results. It's going to prefer the first thing it can think of. So on non-trivial tasks, ask it to create a plan. Ask it to review its plan. Review its plan yourself. If you're doing any kind of analysis, ask it to list all the possible options. If it's a pro and con, identify pros and cons. If you're trying to diagnose something, ask it to prove or refute all of those options. So force it to think much more carefully through the alternatives by doing things like asking it for supporting information. Don't confuse confidence with confidence. That goes with humans too, to be fair. But AI often provides wrong, confident answers, and will often try to flatter you too in a lot of cases, depending on the system. And there are reasons for this. It is harder for AI systems to evaluate likelihood. That takes a lot more analysis. It's a lot more work. And there's an unfortunate other issue. A lot of these systems are really designed for consumers, and consumers reward confidence. So that's what the AI companies are being pressed towards. Create tests first, review them, have a strong CI/CD pipeline. Tests can guide, but beware, they can guide it wrongly, and don't just accept all the tests. Be selective. Fight for simplicity. For various reasons, they often generate a lot of code that duplicates. You want to work to minimize the code it's generating, reuse libraries, methods, and so on. AI is really good when you have a lot of examples, and standard patterns. I found it's remarkably good at Ruby on Rails because a lot of those kinds of apps look very similar to each other, and there's a lot of standard conventions. Longer term, I think AI is going to make it harder to introduce new programming languages, because now not only do you have to have a programming language, you've got to have a data set for the machine learning systems to train on. That's going to be challenging. Now, AI systems are new. There's surprising bugs, surprising limitations. I think some of those are going to be addressed as they go. And everyone in software development is learning together how to use these AI tools. And it takes time to learn what they're good at and what they aren't. Again, current AI doesn't replace humans. It assists humans. Don't expect too much or too little. but we're all gonna have to learn together. And so I would encourage you to take the course that we've created. Let me just pop back up to our little, there we go. Course we've created, learn other things. We're all trying to do the same. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. I actually have some of the materials from the course itself, if we want to delve into some specific topics. But I was kind of hoping that, hey, here's what we're doing. Here's a larger context. And hopefully some of this was useful to folks. So that's what I have. Happy to drill in anything anybody wants to talk about.
Yeah, thank you for that quick deep dive in it. Folks on the call, let me know if you have any questions. Raise your hand, go off mute, add it in chat. And I'm gonna prove you on one. I know the answer because you and I talked about this, and if you've heard the podcast, you know the answer to this too. But why? Why? You said don't use as your prompt. You're a security professional, security expert, right? Because that's not going to work. Why does it ain't going to work?
Okay, of course, there's first of all, I probably should put some broader context on this. In a number of other situations, when you're using LLMs, this trick actually does work. You are an expert, and then you ask your question, and in many cases, it will often produce a better answer. Now, there's two different parts of that question. Is it true? Why it's true? Is it true? Yes. And this has been repeatedly demonstrated in multiple research studies. We actually cite them in the course. The course isn't itself, our goal is to help developers learn how to develop, but we do cite our sources if you want to take the deep dive into, the claims. And in fact, that one in particular is drilled in more in our guide on how to prompt AI systems. Now, formally, I can't tell you why. I think that is still a research question, but I have a speculation that I think is true in this case. In many other fields, there are a lot of tells that someone is an expert in a topic, and they write clearly. They write clearly different. Differently. They build on different kinds of things, and so I think it's much easier for an LLM to determine someone is an expert. This particular individual is an expert. They seem to have this kind of implicit knowledge. They speak in certain ways. They make assumptions that an expert would make because they're more knowledgeable about the field. For whatever reason, LLMs struggle to have that determination. And so I think basically it's probably a combination of people are claiming to be experts who are not, or there's also, it's so subdivided that it's difficult for it to figure out, where the real experts are not. So I have various hypotheses about why that is. It's obviously, it's something about the training set because that's what these systems are built on. But regardless of it, so that is my suspicion. But regardless of whether or not that suspicion is true, that approach doesn't work. There are approaches that work, but you have to use the approaches that work, not the ones that don't.
Love it. Good, good recorded answer.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I saw a paper title about machine learning is more than the training set. That's true, but it's really difficult to overemphasize how important training sets are to machine learning systems. Machine learning systems are actually terrible at learning from any individual piece of data. Humans can glean far more from a small amount of data than a machine learning system. And so we compensate for that by feeding machine learning systems ridiculous amounts of data. Now, the good news is that the internet has a lot of data, although I think some machine learning folks say there's not enough, which is actually true, but there's a fair amount of data. But in this particular case, when they're trying to learn how to write programs, they're training from a lot of insecure code. And I don't know what you thought a machine learning system was going to generate when it was trained on a lot of insecure code. What did you think it was going to produce? Right. Um, about just to quote one study did a case where they were generating functions and they knew it could be done securely or insecurely, and 45% of the time it would do it insecurely, and that was this year. Okay, this is not an ancient history. What's worse, it hasn't improved. The ability of these systems to generate code for functionality has increased dramatically over the last couple of years. Its security has remained flatlined. Why? I think part of the reason is that they're bringing in more and more data to train on. So it's better and better crafting functional results, as well as just larger models and so on. But all that data is more and more insecure software, where that is not going to solve all the problems. And since I don't think we're going to replace all our insecure software with secure software tomorrow, never mind train on that instantaneously secure software, we're it doesn't mean we can't use these tools, but it means that we have to take different approaches, which is why we developed this course. We developed a guide on how to prompt these tools. It doesn't mean you can't, it just means that there are ways to use these tools, but it's not I sit down in front of the computer and it magically does everything for me. That is the way complete and total trust of these AI systems is how you use production databases, not a reasonable approach to using these tools.
Yeah, even when I prompt it, whenever I'm coding, it's like use best practices and I'll name like NIST and whatever it is. I'm like, after I do that little spiel, I'm like, all right, give me this code, and I'm like looking at it, and I'm like, you still have something wrong right here. So
That's right.
thankfully,
That's
I
right.
have a history of it, but you know,
Yeah, I will say that
if you're somebody brand new,
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to repeat.
no, go ahead.
I was going to say, absolutely. And early versions of our guide, we had a list of things you could do, and some people said, "Oh, here's this long list. I'll just copy and paste everything." I actually did some experiments with that, and the intriguing result was that if you told it all possible things, it would try to counter security problems, even security problems that couldn't possibly exist. And the result was incredibly complicated code that in many cases could not work because it was trying to counter problems that couldn't happen, producing code that could not work for that case. And what does this mean? Again, does this mean we can't use the tools? No, but it means that the human's going to have to know something. You're going to have to look at things like, okay, what are the issues in this context? All right, here are the things I should, okay, here are the instructions I should give it in order for it to, address the context it's currently in. Repeat, repeat, repeat. Now I have a number of times been amazed. I remember one time where, oh man, this is gonna be a 4-hour job. Giving all the details. Poof, there's the answer. I love it. 20 seconds versus 4 hours. I like that. Of course, I've had the opposite experience. 8 hours interacting with the system, absolutely still have not even slightly gotten anywhere. We're abandoning this one. And unfortunately, I don't, I think all of us are going to be in this learning curve where we're learning what they're good at, what they're not. And the biggest advice I can say is look around, look at this course, look at other courses, look for people who have learned things, grab their tips, and build on what not only you have learned yourself, but what others have learned.
Yeah, it's good advice. And it's the other thing I tell folks is like, remember that these large language models, these small large, all this is they're like in their toddler stage. So they're still learning how to speak. So just give it time and patience. And as the years progress and as we improve all these tools and technologies, they'll get better, but thankfully our job is secure for right now because they need a little bit of a handhold from the human side.
They need a lot actually, and
Yeah.
I agree, but I also think we need to be cautious here about where is this going. I mean, so I have been amazed at some of the I don't want to call out any particular orgs, but some orgs are charging significant money, and then when you use the tool for the first time, you notice some unbelievable glaring bugs that inhibit the capability of the tool, not because of the underlying LLM that has some, but because there are bugs that make it far less effective. And why? Because everybody is rushing out the gate with these things, and those will get fixed. The LLMs will get better, but as long as we're using LLMs or LLM-like technology, including small language models, all the LLM-like things, um, I don't. This is not the path by itself towards artificial general intelligence. I don't care what other folks say. Um, I mean, this is not that path. This might be. This might help us build those systems. No, but nobody knows how to build AGI. That's just. I don't think. I think people have been fooled by these systems, but that doesn't make them useless, even though they're not sentient, they're not even slightly sentient, they don't understand things in the way that a human would. That doesn't make them useless. This is a tool. These are tools. If they're useful tools, they're useful tools. But like all tools, they have limitations, they have problems, and so we're going to have to learn about those limitations and those problems. And we're seeing a lot of really intriguing capabilities. I mean, the switch to agent-based systems has been a really big improvement. Um, Giving agents tools to work with has been a game changer, because now the agents don't have to do everything. Turns out, for example, by themselves, an LLM is terrible at doing simple computation, absolutely worthless at it. You know, it can tell you what 2 plus 2 is, but that's only because it has a lot of data that tells in its training set that that's 2 plus 2 is 4. You give it a larger pair of numbers to add, it's not in the training set, has no idea. But if you teach it, hey, to add 2 numbers, here's the instructions to send to Python or a calculator more generally, and then how to retrieve the answer. That's been extraordinary. That's been a game changer. I think we're going to see a lot of amazing capabilities as the result of in the next few years. But I can't predict the long-term future. Maybe someday these systems will completely replace the humans. That's not today's systems, not today's systems. But let's go use them for what they're good at. All right.
Awesome.
Yeah. Any other questions? Happy to. Let's see. Oh, I actually wasn't looking at the chat, so.
Yeah, I don't see any questions coming in the chat. If nobody has anything else, I'm very happy to give back 25 minutes to folks. Feel free to raise your hand, throw in the chat any questions you might have, and if not, um, we'll thank David for his time, his wisdom, creation on this course. Go check it out. Go get your digital badge. Go brag about it on social media. I,
I'm sorry. No, I don't think it's a question for us.
no, I think it was a excellent.
I wanted to ask a question about the security focus guide for AI. Is it are these example things you can copy, right? Sample instructions.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Copy as part of your prompt or customize these and send to AI.
Yes. So basically, if you go to the guide itself, what you'll see is some general recommendations, and then you'll see the too long didn't read, which is a massive here are the kinds of instructions you can give to an LLM. And if you wanted to, you can copy and paste that into an LLM, say put it in a markdown file or whatever. But we also at the beginning tell you, don't do that. And then instead we walk through, here are specific instructions you can give and the conditions you would give it. And this was because of the earlier thing I mentioned earlier. If you don't give them any instructions about security, or just tell it you are a security expert, which actually, if anything, can often make it worse, these things will often generate insecure code. Okay. If you give them just copy and paste everything, it will see, wow, all these different things I need to deal with for security. I'll generate code that completely defends myself against everything. And it might choose to do things that, defend itself against data formats that can't possibly occur. It might prevent handling all the data because, well, that's the safest thing, just don't handle the data. So it's, basically what you have to do, unfortunately, is figure out which instructions make sense and then give it those instructions, which is why, even though we do have something that you can just straight copy paste, we have more detailed instructions about, here's the kinds of things that you can tell it, here are the conditions. And then once you get a better sense of that, you can go back up to the top and quickly copy out just the pieces that matter to you for whatever it is specifically you're asking for. And it's not even just per project, it's what are you doing at this moment in time. So for example, I'm writing a program, I'm directly handling untrusted input. That's a different circumstance than I'm way deep down here. All the data I'm getting in processing now is from, is trusted. It's from an administrator, but I've got some other issues I need to deal with. And so you basically have to rethink, as you basically, just because you've got AI does not mean you get to turn the brain off. The brain must stay engaged, but the good news is that you have an assistant, and the assistant is actually can be, if properly instructed, the assistant can be helpful. The assistant knows a whole lot of things. The assistant is also incredibly unwise. And it's very interesting working with a simulated intelligence that is intelligent but not wise, and and you really end up with an interesting dichotomy. We're going to see a whole lot of people learning to have to express themselves a whole lot better in natural language than they did before.
Thank you very much.
Oh, sure. Any other questions?
That'd be all for now. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much, everybody.
Yeah, if there's no other questions, if not, we're on Slack, you know where to find us. Thank you, David, so much for your time today on this Bears office hours. Remember, this is going to be published on YouTube. And we'll catch you at the next office hours. Thanks, everyone.